So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the petty cash report and establishing the petty cash fund and replenishing cash at the end of it. So we talked about at the beginning of this chapter that one of the ways cash is used in a business is that you'll have a petty cash fund that you'll use for doing miscellaneous little expenses, often little things that you want to just do with cash. You go out and you buy postage, you're short a few stamps. I talked about how I often got sent out to go get paper using the petty cash fund for our office. And so establishing petty cash fund, you got to fund it first. And that means we need to decrease, let me get over here. So we're going to decrease the amount of cash we have on hand and increase the petty cash fund. So petty cash will increase, cash will decrease. We're just moving it from was in our bank account over to our petty cash fund. And like we normally do, write the date first, write the debit amounts, write the cash amounts, and our source document is with a check that was used to fund that we were used to withdraw amounts with. And so something that we may use to help show proof of petty cash payment is a petty cash slip, or a lot of times it's just little notes that are written inside the cash box of what it was used for. So petty cash on hand is the amount when you do your petty cash report, you may end up with having not as much cash, physical cash in the box that you say you should have if you go through and do all the receipts. This is cash short. Petty cash on hand, where you actually have more cash on hand, so the box has actually more physical cash, is cash over. The custodian prepares a petty cash report at the end and shows what needs to be replenished. So we want to always have at the beginning, whatever it may be, whether it's beginning of every month or beginning of every, whatever breaking up period, you want to keep the account at the same amount. And we'll use it during the time. So here's a petty cash report. Up at the top is a date and the custodian's name. Who's responsible for this cash? It's going to start with the fund total, and then any payments that were used by the general ledger account. So these are ledger account names. Miscellaneous expense and advertising expense are both on the, if I was able to look over at my chart of accounts, they would show up in my chart of accounts. So we're noting where this money is being used towards. We're going to then total those payments, and we're going to subtract it from our beginning amount. And so in theory, we will have $66 in cash in our box. This next one, the less the amount actually on hand, this number will be told to you. What would really happen is you'd actually have to count the box. And we were short by $1. And so what that means is we have to not only replace the funds that we used, the $34 we used, plus that $1 that just went missing. That means that when we replenish this account, we're going to spend $35 to replenish it. Okay, so the cash short and over is the debit is when the cash is short, credit when the cash is over. That's how we record where the money came from. So if you're short, your debit. If you are over, it's a credit. The amount is neither debit or credit. It is typically as a debit. And the petty cash fund is more likely to be short than it is to be over. So when we need to replenish, this is when the first time we've actually run into a situation where we actually have multiple accounts as used in the debit column or the credit column. The big goal is this total needs to match this total. And so we are going to go through, and expenses, their normal balance is a debit, so we record those as debits. Because we were short, it is a debit. If we were over, it would be a credit. And then the cash that we replenished is our credit. And our source document is a petty cash report, and it will tell, is our check number 11, sorry. The information came from the petty cash report. So why do you use petty cash funds? This is for small payments which writing a check for is either not time or cost effective. Why is cash rather than petty cash credited when the petty cash fund is replenished? The check is issued to replenish the credit to cash, and it does not affect the petty cash. So let's go ahead and do this process. So you have to read carefully the wording up here. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know. It's not going to be a box you can pull over. And so it's going to tell you the date, November 30th. And custodian's signature is, student signature, excuse me. Is what you put in the custodian spot. Now, it says at the beginning of the month, the amount of the fund is $200, so that's the starting amount. And the petty cash slips, the ones that were put in the bucket or in the box, show that it was used for postage expense and for miscellaneous expense. It says for postage was $24. And for for miscellaneous is $20. So that means we used a total of $44. So if I was to subtract that, we should end up with $156 is our amount when we subtract. It tells you the actual amount in the petty cash box is $154. And that means I am short $2. So if I was to I need to add $2 extra to the amount on hand to get up to what I say I should have. So now let's go ahead and slide everything over. We need to move over the total payments, 44. And since I was short, I need to move over $2. If I was over, I'd move over a negative $2. Basically, it'll go opposite. I'll show you real quick. And actually, it may make you do it in parentheses in this. I'm trying to remember. It may not let me since this is not a one that's short. So we'll add these two. And it is $46 that I need to add back to my account. And grade step 1. This way you know if you got it right before you go on to the next step where we're going to post the transactions. So we have the report up here. We have the transactions and their dates that we're going to do. I'm going to unpin this and slide it over to the side. So we start off with, on November 1st, we established the petty cash fund. And so the two accounts were, again, our petty cash and our cash. Petty cash will receive our debit, and cash will receive our credit, and it was $200. And the evidence for this transaction was check 64. Then on the 30th, we need to do and reconcile our petty cash report. And so let's go ahead and look and see what things went into or our debit columns. Again, we're going to have multiple debit columns this time because we have multiple accounts that were affected with this transaction. And so postage expense was $24. Miscellaneous expense was $20. And the cash short and over fund how that looks. Let me look back over at cash short and over. I brought the word "and." And I was off by $2. And then for my credit account was cash. If I was total all this up, that's 24 plus 20, so 44, plus 2, 46. And our evidence is our check 86. And go ahead and grade your final step. Don't forget to do the on your own and then the application.